Caravan. You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you don't.
Good morning.
And a bright good morning to you. I think we got the lighting and everything set up today. Yesterday, it took us about 45 minutes to get the show started. And so it ended up running well over almost an hour. And I guess it was 20 minutes or something like that. I'm just checking out my card, and it looks like the morning show fit perfectly. Kind of have a Bondish type of character on there, but basically it's some original art I had originally created. The idea of this show, the tagline under there is "Too Many Secrets," and I thought we would deal with that. That was my caffeine drink. I took off drinking these for almost about a week. But I had a rough night last night sleeping, I'll tell you. It was like, I didn't know what it was. I think it was indigestion. I had I had caffeine or cabbage. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Tony Caravan live show, we always start out with little personal updates on things of all sorts. But health issues and food is one of those things that we do talk about. And as the weather gets nicer in the spring, at least up here in the mid-Atlantic states, I'll be taking you along with me back into my garden. And as you can see, I've got everything kind of in positioned here, from Great Solar Stuff to Everything You Know Is Wrong shirt to Codex, the book, and of course the classic shirt that says "Then What?" with the question mark. It might be a little bit harder to read with the crinkling in it. But I felt really crappy last week. Thought I was losing it, dying. First I thought I had the plague. Then I ordered myself a thermometer, which I realized I didn't have. So I had to wait out 2-day Amazon free delivery for that. But turned out, tested myself multiple times every day, a couple times a day, blah, blah, blah. Never had a fever. It was always like 98.2 or something like that. I didn't have the dry cough or the headache or anything, but I just was feeling like I was dying. I thought, anyway, so I kind of, went on a health kick, and I don't know. Yesterday I might have overdone it. I made this salad with a lot of like chopped cabbage, and I had this vision in my mind that the cabbage was somehow breaking down into sauerkraut inside of me, and I don't know. I had the worst indigestion. It's one of those things. I didn't get to bed till after midnight, and I usually go to bed around 7, like at the latest sometimes, because I usually get up at 3 to do this thing. Right now it's 6:45. I've been up for a while, but and that's why I'm drinking caffeine. I'm still not awake. And of course, this is a live show, so you get the caffeine and all that kind of stuff. You also get the weather, and it seems like it's up to 30 degrees right now. And it's going to be 50 tomorrow, supposedly. Sunny and 50. I guess people will be breaking out the shorts. It's going to get up even to 43 today. So it's going to be a sunny day here in the mid-Atlantic states. You get an idea from that hat that that's near the region where I am. You got to keep all these things secret locations. But that gets into the title of this show, Too Many Secrets. And I was watching one of these Netflix shows, these series. And this particular series was from shot in Australia and had Anna Torv in it. And she was the girl from Fringe, if you remember that show. they don't make them like that anymore. You know, it's just like they don't make the X-Files anymore. But Fringe was like took the X-Files and, you know, to a whole another dimension because it was, you know, got involved in, you know, far out physics and stuff like that. So it was a great show. I don't know how many seasons, forget how many seasons it ran, but it was good. And again, I wish I could put up her picture, but I always thought she was an attractive woman and good actress. But this show, which was shot in Australia, you know, Australian production, get myself comfortable here. Cough, dry cough. Was surprising. In fact, because it delved into things like the military industrial complex. In fact, they even had a scene in there where the prime minister was looking on his laptop computer in his office, the Eisenhower farewell address, where he first brought up the military industrial complex, and, you know, excerpts from that, you know, farewell speech. And so, excuse me, it's just, this always happens when I'm drinking sodas and you have a mustache and it's morning and all that stuff. And you're on live TV. So anyway, again, for those new to the channel, the beginning is always like kind of get ourselves situated until we could, you know, get it happening. And then it's finally,
Let's get this show on the road.
yeah. So get back to the story. So, you know, that shows you what kind it was, but they were getting into like how intelligence agencies were involved in things domestically within their country, tied into the U.S., you know, basically real, you know, taught real spying stuff, but domestic spying and that sort of thing. And the cat has, on cue, decided to do the old cat litter endless scratching. So, you know, when I was impressed with the fact that they would touch that subject matter and it was there were 2 seasons of it. I don't know if there was a third, because you never know with Netflix. You have to even look at the dates on Netflix. Sometimes you find, oh, they did that series. That series is like 10 years old or something. You watch the thing and it's like, but whatever the case may be, both individual seasons had an ending to them. In other words, and I like that idea. In other words, it came, whatever the storyline that you were following in that individual one came to a conclusion, even though in the second season, the characters still maintained, you know, they drew from some of the history of the characters and the events prior. But, you know, to have run 2 seasons like that, you know, you could see that, and for that to have been on. Now, I think she was related to the Murdoch somehow, and I noticed that it was a Foxtel production or something like that, which, not to be confused with Fox here in the U.S., but that, you know, so, you know, she probably had some family pull getting that thing done. But, you know, it wasn't like it was, you know, it was really, it was not a good portrayal of neither the military industrial complex or the or what we call the deep state, you know, and they even used the word the deep state in that. It was basically an expose of the intelligence agencies, bureaucrats, you know, how governments, high levels of government, spies, you know, traitors, all kinds of crazy stuff that I don't think in the US, our network TV, because it's censored, the government is, our military industrial complex funds a lot of our movies and TV to begin with. But second of all, you know, we have that thing here where, you know, we pretend as if we're living in, it's all Disney. It's Disney on TV, but in reality, we live in a world of that's anything but, but Disney. So yeah, it was pretty crazy, and so, excuse me. The idea behind it was that, these domestic spy agencies actually were committing acts against their own people in their own country, and all for the sake of of maintaining the secrecy and the nefarious acts that they were up to. And like I said, it was actually refreshing. It was a find. I know it's been around for a while, and I think I once, maybe several years ago or a year or so ago, started to watch it, but then I realized when I got deeply into it, I didn't. But it's called Secret City is the name of it if you have Netflix. And if you can handle something heavy like that, because it even exposed journalism and the ties, how they were, how there were people in the media that were basically playing into the various intelligence agencies. And like I said, this was more of an expose than any kind of glorification of the deep state as it is. So I thought, it just gave me, I was, I'm always looking for ideas, topics that I might, depart, for a point of departure in our morning shows. And, and so that, I was thinking about that in between the idea that, like I said, for someone new to this whole thing, it's always a little bit of me first. But yeah, I was like, indigestion. When you get that indigestion, and that's what I'm assuming it was, hoping it was. It's like, you just can't get comfortable. You're in pain. I ended up I took 2 Tylenol, and then what I did was I ended up later on taking 2 more. So I was like OD'd on Tylenol, and that was the only thing that really, I guess, knocked me out by 11 o'clock at night or something like that. So anyway, back to the story. So let's take ourselves back to, these ununited states here, what the former Western civilization, Europe and the Americas, and it's interesting, and this has nothing to do now. We're off of that show, Secret City, I believe it was called. We're back. We're here in now we're in real world. Okay. Real time. So, we had, if you're familiar, anyone who's studied, most people don't know, if you say the Stasi state, most people don't know what you're talking about. They don't know about, the Cold War, really. They don't know about, what was going on, the significance of the Berlin Wall, and, all the espionage that went on between East Germany and West Germany, and the US and the former Soviet Union. Instead, it's in modern times, Russia has been used as kind of the whipping boy, because they look like us, and they're non-ethnic in a sense of they're neither Asian, brown, black, or Latino or anything. So if you got to have somebody to be your whipping boy, it would have to be somebody who's fair skinned and looks a way in which you can make them the bad guy without having somebody come down on you for some kind of political incorrectness. And that's really why Russia, if you ever notice in movies and even in Bond films, which the title card is, kind of reminiscent of that. That was my one of my inspirations, but that's an original piece of art. It's not taken from anywhere. I'm graphic designer for, my entire life, in between everything else I did. And so, when you see a Bond film, when you see a, Jack Reacher movie, even a Mission Impossible flick, and then all of these Washington D.C. books, these books written that are about what goes on, political thrillers and stuff like that. And people watch these things, and I've said this before, and and I'll say it again. People watch these things and they're entertained and they get caught up in it as the drama and it's thriller and it's exciting and all that kind of stuff. But then the movie goes over and then they turn on the news and somebody's trying to explain that there's a possibility that this has happened. And then they say, oh, that's some conspiracy theory. Where's your tinfoil hat? Right? And what I'm trying to say is I'm a guy somebody who's lived and worked in Washington, particularly in Capitol Hill, and knew a lot of people and was writing at the time, and had I had a crew of about a dozen other writers that we used to meet regularly. We were all, the idea was we were trying to put together some film projects. And so, there's a lot, and people had various jobs. We were all DC insiders in a sense. And so your eyes get opened to things that the average person, they just won't come to grips with. They don't believe, like I say, that they'll watch this thing, or they even like that show I described. Someone might even show them the Eisenhower military industrial farewell speech. And they'll say, oh, well, he wasn't really talking about that. And, that's not really true, and blah, blah, blah. Oh, it's true. And I always say that if you've seen it in a movie, okay, it's probably 10 times worse in real life, as far as what's really going on. And at this particular time, in what's going on in DC right now, the power of the bureaucracies, they are definitely a step above elected officials. And that's it. I mean, there's no going back from that now. In other words, for a long time they operated in the shadows. And a lot of these stories were about that, how this, how this government how they were like secret, more or less secret governments, or, dark this, black ops this, and all that kind of stuff. But it's not the way it is at all anymore. And like I constantly try to say, if you have to look at things on a level, so you take the executive branch, Congress, the court system, all right, which most people would think, in looking at what I call former Western civilization. So in former Western civilization, people said, oh, the president of the United States is the leader of the free world, okay, meaning Western civilization in effect, which no longer exists. Those who think there's a thing called Western civilization are living in a 1960s Disney fantasy land. They might as well have the little fairy with the sparkle thing come on. And then you've got Congress. This is the form, the way people used to look for Congress and the court system, meaning from the Supreme Court down to federal judges and various courts. And then it was below those were bureaucrats that were appointed by the aforementioned, the other people that used to be at the top, right? Bureaucrats. And then media, and then various contractors, corporations, before big tech, but tech companies then, pharma, big pharma has been around for a really long time, that sort of thing. Well, what you have to understand in today's world, it's completely the inverse of that. It's completely reversed. So the executive branch, the Congress, the court system are the lowest rung of society, and in power are the lowest rung. Above them are the unelected bureaucrats. All right. And those, and this is anywhere in Europe. It happened a long time ago. All right. When Brussels, the whole EU was a continuation of the original of Hitler's plan for a greater Germany. I mean, it's what it really is. That was his plan, minus the, the megalomania, genocidal craziness that the man stood for. So understanding this is hard for a lot of people to comprehend because they watch television or social media. And like I said, we have this politics has become pop culture. It's everywhere you go. You can't escape it. And we have this cult of personality tendency which was originally brought on once television came around. Even with radio, you started to create in other words, it started to create. You could almost go back to the moving pictures, as they called them back then. Is the idea is we created something called the star system, and so where multiple people would go to the movies, and so they would see, Clark Gable, for example, or they would listen to the radio and they would have these particular announcers, right? And entertainers. And then television came along. And with each step of that whole entire thing, excuse me. I'll tell you, man, carbonated beverages and me just don't work. I'm going to switch back to coffee. I've got these mugs on order, morning show mugs. And I'm hoping that's some swag that you guys could get behind. There's like 3 different kinds. There's the metal one that you can take with you, and put in your car, the classic silver type thing. There's a ceramic one, and there's another version of it. And I should almost print them out to give you a preview of it. Which maybe I will do that right now. But I'll continue the conversation while I'm doing this. All right. So somewhere along the line, just going to my website. It looks like I'm looking at the camera, but I'm actually looking at my own screen right now. Because I had just added a link to these things. And let's see if it still works. Yeah, it works. Okay. So print. Let's see what the print's going to look like. I'm caught between this weird. This is going to really use a lot of black ink. I'm caught between this weird thing where I recently re-resurrected TonyCaravanLive.com. All right. As a website. But I've been using Rockflux for 20 some years. And I don't know. Now, this is one of those things. It's like, anyway, let me grab this and show you because I want to complete this thought. Still here. Chase the cat away. There we go. And he's back. These headphones make you look like Mickey Mouse. All right. this is a preview of what's to come, some new swag. It's actually available now if you go to Tony Caravan Live, if you're interested in it. That's like one of my favorite ones down the bottom. See, that's like a metal. It's almost like a camping type of cup, if you can see it without too much glare. And then this one would be a ceramic one. And then, of course, over there is the metal one. So I like to give you a little preview. You'll be seeing me drinking out of those in the future. So anyway, that's the topic today, and I wanted to dig deeper into this and as deep as possible into it, just for the sake of it, and talk about it. And I apologize for the handkerchief. You know, I'm just not going to start all over again. I see people come on and off, you know, because there's a tally on you when you're broadcasting live. And the numbers go up a couple and then they go down because once they see me or they see me with the handkerchief or doing something, they don't understand it. Look, it's the morning show.
Good morning.
We're here to have some fun and talk about some serious issues, but we're not taking things too seriously here. All right. Because before I even get into this, because sometimes it takes till the end of the show to where I say this, and I don't think anybody ever makes it to the end of the show, is that we have 5 senses. That's all right. Not sentences, senses. Sense, like the sense of touch, sight. Okay. And we have something called creativity. And I got into this in depth toward in the last 20 minutes or so of yesterday's show, which was over after the hour already. So, you know, you got to really have nothing else better to do to sit and watch me for an hour and a half. But so I want to get this out of the way just up front, because maybe many people who've even watched this show don't make it that far. And I always do try to end on a positive note. And the positive note is no matter what they do, so whatever we're going to get into talking about today, just remember one thing. No matter what they do, you have 5 senses, okay? And you are on this planet, all right? And you have something that's unique, and that is creativity. And AI doesn't have that. You know, all these guys, you know, the technocrats and all these people who are trying to, you know, transhumanists and all that garbage, they're all delusional. Like I say, you know, and I criticize people even like Elon Musk. They're just boys with toys, too much money and doing ridiculous things with it, right? I want to play with rockets. I want to play with this. I want to play with that. Yes, many of these billionaires have done some great things, and that's fine. And I appreciate it. And you know, and the Tesla's a great car. You know, as far as its technology, electrical wise, though I am totally against the concept of driverless cars. 2 reasons. First reason, defeats the purpose of having a car, right? You know, in other words, the idea of driving is to drive. So why don't you just develop like I don't know how it is. I haven't been to Epcot Center in 30 years. But, you know, like the Disney monorail type of system. I still don't understand why that hasn't happened. You know, Disney's Epcot Center and was basically Disney World in Florida was basically the idea of, they used to have these things called the World's Fairs, you know. And I don't know when the last one was. It was probably sometime in the 60s. I know my parents went to one. I don't know if I probably was at it. Maybe I was too young to go, or maybe I didn't even go. I don't know. I also have no reason why the screen suddenly got dark. But caffeine helps. It does help. So
here's what's happening.
So Disney's idea, even though he was kind of a shady character, but let's not get into that. I almost worked for Disney once, and in fact, I had personal correspondence with the president after he was gone, who was trying to get me a position down in their Imagineering place in Florida, and I didn't really pursue it vigorously. This was many years ago. It's like over 30 years ago, well over 30 years ago. It was actually before I went to California. Let's see if I can get that light to change. Sometimes if you just do that, it changes. Oh, I guess it didn't. Well, anyway, so Disney's idea was that to have a World's Fair, have a park. He was so impressed with the World's Fair. Most people were. That was the first place you saw video. So in the 60s, they had video phones. And again, I'm not going to print out a million different things like this, because I am going to improve this interface at some point. I'm going to crack this thing and figure it out without having to spend. I saw a thing yesterday. They wanted $149 a month to have the capability of doing the stuff I'm talking to you. So they've already pushed it into the cloud. And they listed one of the services that I had, like a Wirecast or something, that has already been, they want to upgrade that to, me to pay $5.99, even though I already purchased the program a couple of years ago. And now that I see that they're cloud basing the other ones that most people are using. In other words, if I wanted on the bottom of the screen here to have my, some kind of feed, or put up the photo, right, an image here or something like that, like I've done in my earlier videos, just go back about a couple of weeks and you'll see my produced videos, ones that have like an intro to them, and I talk about something and the picture flashes up just like on a regular news show or something like that. I mean, I have the capability of doing that. The problem is it's pre-recorded. And so it takes the whole day almost to get a show up. So if I'm doing a show that's an hour and a half or an hour and 20 minutes, it's an hour and 20 minutes. And then I've got to go back over the thing to edit in, to put in these picture-in-picture and these various effects, and, add some sound things or stuff like that. Now, it doesn't necessarily take me the full time in real time. I could push forward, but sometimes finding the exact spot that it almost does take an hour. Then I have to take it out of the program that I've edited it in and convert it to an MP4 file. I've said this before, but it's worth saying. And that takes, sometimes you look at it, goes like, it's take an hour and a half to process. So now you got the MP4 file, and now you want to upload it to YouTube. And I've already had it take 2 hours to upload the darn thing. And so just add it all up, an hour and a half here, an hour and a half there, an hour and a half here, 2.5 hours there. And it's like, who has the whole day to waste? Number one, I don't. And I don't want to. That's not my life. My life isn't going to be to spend 6 hours to do a show. And then the second reason, though, is the authenticity of live. So in other words, you're getting me. Yeah, I take a drink and then I have to clean off the mustache or whatever. So what? It's real life. I'm a human being. And this follows the discussion that I was just trying to say before we, it's a roundabout way of getting into this. Always takes us a half hour to get to the point. But that's life. When you hang out, you go visit somebody, if you have a friend, and and that's the whole idea, is that I'm in your living room or wherever you are, and you're spending time with me. This isn't some short little clip you watch on a smartphone. You don't watch an hour and a half show on a smartphone. You're usually sitting down watching this thing. And I look at it, and I watch these things back myself. And I find that it seems to me like it's conversational. So as if it's enjoyable. So the idea behind that is that I lost my train of thought. No. The idea behind it is, as doing something live, uh, is just more honest, and it's the truth. I'm not editing anything. I'm not cutting something out. I'm just telling you that. I've been demonetized. I was one of the first guys on YouTube, and I was almost demonetized day one. Not for like a violation of like any kind of thing. It was because I was in competition with Google at the time. And I don't think there's anybody left at the company that understands that. I was putting out an alternative to search. And I remember getting some correspondences saying that my alternative to search was somehow a way for people to like somehow game the search engines link, like it was a link, pay to play link thing or something like that. And it was the farthest thing from it. It was actually a better version of search, because I had come to the conclusion that while in some instances, all right, and I stress some instances, there are some really off the wall searches that people do on Google or whatever. I don't use it that way anymore. I use, but that most people search for the same things because we're human beings. And this gets back to this 5 senses and our creativity and AI and the technocrats and everything. This will all come together for you if you've just got to follow this line of thought. And so there are only so many humans, like kinds of humans. Life is not that complex. In other words, the way we see the world, all right, perceive the world, I should say, is the sun rises, the sun sets. Okay. These are things that the ancients, sometimes base their buildings and civilizations upon. Simple things like that. Flowers grow. You plant a seed, a flower grows. Forests, flourish. Water flows. Gravity, magnetism. Just basically the basic, physics of life and biology. Okay. So you look at the earth and you think of earth sciences or something like that. You think of archaeology and you think of anthropology, right? You look at people and you think of personality types, body, they have, if you go to a doctor, they have body types, based on, body fat ratio to this, that, the other. So in other words, if you really think about it, and there's a movement that's been there since the beginning of time by the people who want to control you and manipulate you, is to not let you see the world the way it really is. And that's why people come up with so many far out ideas, and really they work against us like truth tellers, because they get so caught up in certain mythologies, metaphysics, and new age spirituality and different things like that, that they don't clarify, what they mean or what they're trying to talk about, or specify it, specifically, instead they generalize. And when you generalize, you tend to be wrong, because, and so what I'm trying to get at is that life is not as complicated as you might think it is. The world is not complicated. Ask a mathematician, or like a guy like Einstein, for example. There's a moment when you're working on a problem, trying to solve a problem, that you can suddenly grasp it. Now, you may have like all this stuff written on these various whiteboards or chalkboards or whatever you're doing your thing with, But there comes that point, eureka moment is what they call it. When you basically go, aha, right? Or was it Einstein? He was the Yahoo or something like that. That's where Yahoo came from, I believe. And and that's what that should be your goal in any instance, is to have that, eureka moment. And many parts of our lives are basically very simplistic to understand. They're beautiful. There's truth and beauty and art. And that's what pop culture and culture is all about, not politics and the things that they throw in front of you. And you have these you have to look at you say, well, what's the meaning of life? These people have, it's the stupidest things they say like that. And it's like, it's not that complicated. The meaning of life. Well, you're on this planet, okay, that's hurling through space, being dragged by this star we call the sun at ridiculous speeds, okay, going around in some sort of regular pattern, though everything is all moving and in different places and constantly, but there are certain cycles and patterns to this whole crazy, insane universe that we live in, that may be part of a multiverse or whatever. But the whole thing about it is you have 5 senses and you're on this planet and you have a visual of the universe. Man can glance the great expanse. All right. And we've been put into these cubicles, houses, apartment buildings, job cubicles, and everyone is pushed, everything. It's like you're being guided in this thing, and they turn it into almost like a maze. And so nobody really they've lost touch with the idea of open sky, looking up at the stars. Last week we had what was called the snow moon. The moon was lower in the sky, so whenever it's lower in the sky, it always appears bigger. It was beautiful, and full moons, at least in the mid-Atlantic states where I am, the sky happened to be clear for like those 3 or 4 days building up to the full moon, and as it was, no longer becoming as full. And it's a sight to behold, just like a sunset is a sight to behold, and a sunrise is a sight to behold. Just like we enjoy, the ocean, the waves, and things of that nature, or people who go hiking out into, in the mountains and woods, or friends of mine who've climbed, the 7 summits, been to Antarctica, the North Pole, and places like that. So we have that. That's a reality. That's our world. That's the planet we live on. And we have these senses that we can experience this planet in its full, immerse ourselves in it. That's why I like like this whole idea of, VR and headsets and all that stuff. To me is like, they say, oh, you can immerse yourself into this, whatever. And I say, like, what do you mean? It's like Alan Watts' quote I gave yesterday about space. It's like, hey, we're already out in space, way out in space, man, as he said it. And it's the same with immerse yourself into something. We're already immersed. We already have a 360-degree view. Just go out and walk into a middle of the field and stand there and slowly go turn around 360 degrees. And you're immersed in the beauty of nature, right? And you also have something called creativity, that you can figure things out, all right? with the materials, and because you have these senses and you have these appendages, but it's not just the appendages. So they build these robots and they've got these algorithms and they've got this AI, and these technocrats are convinced, and we're going to get to the spying thing and the too many secrets thing. This all ties together. Don't worry. Just hang in there. And so they build these robots. And the idea is to merge the robots with AI. That's like the current thing, to make the robots smart. And then ultimately their goal is to merge man with machine. And you've got Elon Musk doing his, want to put implants in people's brain. And I've talked about yesterday, Kurzweil. A lot of the topics discussed today, I touched on yesterday. But, they bear repeating, and this will be, I think this will make more sense because I watched yesterday's show and I think I want to put this together a different way. So you are free. You are free, assuming you have no handicaps. Some people have handicaps. But assuming you have no handicaps, or you're not, too old or too young, to be able to be mobile and go places and do things. That's freedom. All right. Forget about whether, any kind of temporary things. Forget about people talking about masks and this and social distancing and all that stuff. If you don't want to deal with that kind of stuff, what I say is get out of those areas. Wake up to reality. All right. Western civilization has collapsed. This country is the states now. It's not the United States, because this country isn't united. All you got to do is turn on the TV. I got rid of my TV for that reason, because it was all politics, nonstop politics. I don't want to hear about it. I want to hear about it. I don't mind knowing the news, but I don't want the news to be such and such did this today. Everything about politics. Like I said, they're the lowest rung, all right, in a civilization, in a society. The president of the United States is the lowest level, okay? Lower than even Congress. But Congress, and the courts. But they're all lower than the bureaucrats. And the bureaucrats are all lower than the technocrats. Big tech, big pharma, military industrial complex. All right? All the corporatocracy, the Davos set, the World Economic Forum, the Great Reset. I'm shaking my fingers like this because it's like they're the puppeteers that pull the strings of everyone below, including the former, the presidents. Okay? And get that through your thick skulls, right? And he ain't coming back. All right. There's no salvation, no elections. Forget about that stuff. Forget about politics. It's nothing. They're nobodies. It's content for, media companies to fill the space between their commercials to sell you things that, will ultimately kill you. Right. Ads for drugs that 2 years later they're putting ads for, the law firms are putting ads about the drugs that they sold you 2 years earlier. So we got that caffeine out of the way now. That's one thing down. So know that. So now you understand. You know yourself better. Has anyone really said that to you recently? Has anyone ever told you that you are free? Has that ever emphasized the fact that you have 5 senses that make life worth living? That's your, there's no mystery to life. You've got eyes to experience the beauty of the planet where you live, ears to hear the sounds of that planet or sounds created by other humans because of the creativity we have. that some robotic machine with AI is never going to be able to create? That you can taste food that machines aren't going to taste, a very complex tongue and system of taste and sense, and sense of smell. And the skin is your largest organ. The sensual ness of feeling with, not only just to feel what a thing is, whether or not you're trying to get Scotty to beam you up and say, hey, I know what that is. I can feel that. That's a communicator. And I know what this is. That's a black mirror. That's what I call it. Mirror, mirror on the wall. Who's the fairest of them all? But you can also make love. You could also embrace a friend, a lover. You can also, two people can make another human being, reproduce another human being. We are a sophisticated android bioelectric machines created, however, we don't know. That's only speculation. Theologians and scientists people can speculate all they want. Those are areas, it's critical thinking, thought experiments, whatever you want to call it. That's not what this is about. The fact is, for all you AI people out there, and for all you technocrats, and for all you people thinking that you're going to merge man with machine, my question to you is why? The best you're going to ever do is come close to copying some of the thought processes that go within the human brain that's housed in our skull. But we still don't understand the hard problem of consciousness. And in my book, Codex, I deal with that. I don't know why pointing to it is hard, but there it is. Just grab it. I haven't pulled this out in a while. Codex. All right. The hard problem of consciousness. An adventure for your mind. All right. And it's not, like I say, it's a fairly, it's a fairly quick read. But I'll tell you, it'll open up the recesses of your brain, recesses of your mind. Excuse me. So we have that going on. And that's a problem. We have a problem with people that are putting all of their efforts in the wrong places. They're putting their efforts into something that is a dead end. The AI is a dead end. Okay? What they should be putting their efforts into is figuring out how we work and curing all of everything that ails us. But they don't want to, because Big Pharma wants to make money. They want drugs. There's a system out there. It's constantly talked about in certain circles that we can't utilize this particular breakthrough in energy. We can't utilize or publicize this particular patent in medicine. We can't utilize this particular technique, for building some kind of roads. We can't use this particular technique, for something else, because it will destroy millions of jobs and uproot society. Right? Do you realize that if someone came out with a cure for cancer, which supposedly there are multiple things over the years, talk about back into Too Many Secrets, that I went down that rabbit hole many years ago, 5, 6 years ago. I'm a cancer survivor. All right. I had what's called a radical prostatectomy. Take your prostate out. It's like an 8 or 9 hour operation. It's crazy to go through. I mean, sleep through the whole thing. But prior to that, I had kidney surgery. I literally spent the year 2019. I spent most of that, better than half that year leading into 2020, in and out of a hospital. So I know all about that, the medical profession. Unfortunately, I had some good doctors, good surgeons anyway, along the way. So, I went down the rabbit hole. And, I was lucky because I had my cancer surgery in January of last year, which was right before all of this, plague stuff hit. The endless plague, right? As if it's the flesh-eating disease, right? Keep away from everybody because it's a flesh-eating disease. It's like Ebola is out there, right? Not like some novel flu, the way it was portrayed or way it is. That's another story. But if they would tell you that there are these various things you can take that would cure or stop cancer or shrink tumors or things of that sort, and I'm talking outside of radiation treatment and all that other kind of stuff, you would basically take this multi-billion-dollar industry with millions of people employed in it, and you would gut it. Now, some would say, well, there probably isn't anything there. And, and I go, well, I don't, I've seen some things, I've heard some things, and I think they're worth exploring or publicized, but I've seen far too many people who have had, these so-called success rates with cures and things of that nature, that nefarious things happened and they disappeared, right? Or the classic thing, they were suicided, right? Murder through suicide. Too many secrets, right? Then we have this military-industrial complex. A weapon unused means it doesn't have to be replaced. Means that the military contractor, the companies, these giant corporations, giant global corporations, the names, they're part of the corporatocracy that pulls the strings of the military. So, you've got all these people in the military that, believe that they're patriots, but they're basically being sent into wars and being killed and dismembered for the sake that the replacement value of the ammunition, the SUV, the equipment, the missiles, what have you, are, is big business for the military industrial complex. Too many secrets. And big tech. Big tech is collecting all this data on you. And initially, it's funny, DARPA created the internet to begin with, all right? But that was more for a way of, their communications and, the things they've done. And then DARPA has produced some very interesting things. Defense, basically it's funded by the Pentagon. And but the thing about that is the government always wants, you don't get anything from the government. You don't get anything from the Pentagon. You don't get anything from the CIA, NSA, DIA. You You don't get anything from these alphabet agencies for nothing. Okay. You're basically, once you're in, you're never, you don't get out. And that whatever technology that is created that you're sucked in through to produce for them, they have it. And even if they don't, they have it. They know everything. All right. So too many secrets from the average person. The average person sees some weird thing in a James Bond movie or a Mission Impossible movie or some other kind of thing. Like I say, Jack Reacher, whatever, some sci-fi movie, futuristic, so-called futuristic movie type of thing. And they think, oh, wow, yeah, that's the future. Well, let me tell you something. It is the future. It's the year 2021. All right. Now, if you were born in the year 2000 and you're 21 years old, that means nothing to you because you always there was always a 2 before the year. All right. But if you were born in 1990 or 1980 or 1970 or 1960 or 1950 something, all right, which is, most of the people alive, this is the future. When they used to have World's Fairs in the 60s, this is what they were talking. This was like, Arthur C. Clarke's 2001 A Space Odyssey, which Stanley Kubrick turned into a movie with all that space stuff and stations and all that stuff. That was a movie in the 60s, man. And like I said, I was talking about the World's Fairs earlier and how Disney adapted, the idea of taking, my parents were at the World's Fair and I have pictures of it. They were talking to each other in the 60s on video phones. In other words, they were having FaceTime or Skype or Zoom conversation 60 years ago. And that was at the AT&T booth. And that was the thing that, the technology existed. I believe it was Truman, and it might have even been before that, because before television became mainstream, the technology, as always, the government had its hands on it. And so back then they were able to communicate through a very, very primitive television system. The president with generals and such the like. So, people don't really, there's too many secrets. And because we've created this culture of secrecy, these unelected bureaucrats that basically run everything, are above the elected officials. And now we have above the bureaucrats, and the unelected bureaucrats, see, because there's a war going on that a lot of people don't understand. And people within the bureaucracies themselves don't understand, because there's millions and millions of people employed in government and in these government agencies. And apart from certain higher up, departmentalized, ops and things that go on within these agencies, there's besides like the specifics, generally speaking, most people don't really know what they're working for the company, and they don't know what's really what they're doing, what their work is about. Most are just basically, in the old days, they're clerks, they're pencil pushers. Now they're, computer, they sit in front of computers and things like that. But what I'm trying to get at is that the war that's going on right now isn't between the elected politicians and the bureaucrats. Many people saw that in the last administration, how they saw how that the bureaucrats basically overruled those who were elected to office. In other words, the representatives of the people. And that's why I say the United States no longer exists. A, because it's not united, you know that. Probably within your own family, you have disagreements with, with somebody. I know in my own family, my sister and my mother aren't talking about things, or have arguments. I know other families where they just won't talk about stuff. People within jobs, work co-workers. And then, of course, you have the red state, blue state, and all these ideologies that just totally, have cut, divide everybody. And it's not just like, it's not polarization, division. There's actually even multiple facets of division. There's divisions within divisions within divisions. So you can no longer call this the United States of America. You call it like they do when you go to Europe. They say, oh, you're from the States. Yeah, this is a geographical place, the States. The Constitution that was established is not being adhered to. The courts are just ignoring that. So you have, and we saw, as like I say, as we saw last year, the bureaucrats basically told, the elected officials, get lost. But that's done now. Okay. Western civilization was in the process of falling and being ripped apart. It started in the EU, in Europe. And because, Western civilization, even though the Australians consider themselves part of the Western civilization, it's because they're part of the crown, i.e., the UK and the Queen Mother and all that nonsense. I've been there 3 times. And the thing most people don't get is that there's the war going on. Just ignore the media is using politics as pop culture and as content for to sell cars. Like I said yesterday, they're car salesmen. All right, used car salesmen. That's what the networks are: ABC, NBC, CBS, PBS, CNN, Fox, MSNBC. They're all car salesmen, used car salesmen. That's all they're doing. They're selling ads. All right. And the content in between is this political joke. All right. That by people that have, that make these speeches and are meaningless, have no basic influence on anything. Anything. Like I say, where's our $1,400? They started, originally they were going to give us that last summer. And then they played all these political election games and all that stuff and whatever you want to think. And they hyped that into programming and content that they milked straight through till the end of the year. We got a new administration now. Somehow they had to repass this thing in Congress, but it was supposedly already passed in Congress. That part I never figured out. So now things are supposed to go to Senate, and the latest is that they, if they don't get, they might not get 50 Democrats to approve it, which means our remaining $1,400, hangs in the balance of whether or not, these politicians can stick together. And I wonder about that. Why? What is the big deal? Money's not real to begin with. Money's just some kind of digit in a cloud, in a ledger in a cloud. They talk about deficits and all that stuff, but it's not real. Even gold isn't real. Like I always say, in a grid down situation, if your next door neighbor has toilet paper and you don't, or your next door neighbor has food and you don't, and you go over and say, hey, here's some gold or silver. Hey, look, I got some silver coins. I'll give you a couple of these, Eagle or Standing Liberty, silver dollars. If you give me a roll of toilet paper, or if you give me a couple cans of some canned goods, And if somebody did that to me, I'd be like, no, man, do you have, what else do you have to trade? Right? Well, when the power comes on, or whatever, when things get back to normal, this will be worth. Things aren't going to get back to normal. All right. That phrase that I hate, the new normal, this isn't the new normal, but it's close to the new normal. I mean, this is the way it is. Things only are going downhill from here. Western civilization has fallen, so that's done. Just like the Roman Empire, it's not coming back, right? And the U.S. is divided, is no longer united, and there's no way to reunite it. It's not going to be reunited. Just stop. This infighting, politics is over. The bureaucracy took over. But the point I'm trying to make is the real war going on that nobody's paying attention to, and there's too many secrets because it's a real battle, is the battle between the corporatocracy, big tech, big pharma, military industrial complex, big ag. All right. Why is Bill Gates buying up the single largest owner of farmland in the U.S.? He's the fourth richest man in the world. Right. It's them. It's the bureaucrats who thought they were running the world over top of the elected officials. And now they got another problem. The elected officials, well, they don't stand a chance. They have committees on everything and hearings, and these bureaucrats come in and they lie. And then big tech comes in and they hold them in front of a hearing and they do all this grandstanding. Well, Mr. Zuckerberg, are you going to do this? And looking like Data from Star Trek, he's like, sweating and drinking his water and yes, sir. We'll make sure we ban these people and we do this and we do that. They don't do it. All right. Big tech, the corporatocracy rules the world. They are the puppeteers. The politicians are marionettes. And in between them are bureaucrats. And the real war going on right now is the war between the bureaucrats who thought they had succeeded in making the politicians and the courts irrelevant. Okay. They figured, okay, we got it. We won. Last year they did that, right? They proved it. Now they've got another problem, and many of them, I'm saying, if any of you guys or gals are tuning in, you don't understand. The corporatocracy is coming for you too, because they don't need you. They don't need you. You're in the way. They don't need the CIA and the NSA anymore. Big tech has is in charge of big data. Do you see? These companies have, you may mistakenly, the Pentagon and DARPA mistakenly partnered with these big tech companies to create these robotics, right? And all of this technology. But you forget that they have it, all right? They developed it. You think that those people don't have, it's like the classic thing in that show I started talking about, in a couple instances, the key way that they brought down some people was through some data through thumb drives, right? Like here, it's all on here because you could, the video proof and, the, emails or the code, lines of code that, demonstrate that some drone did something or something like that. And they don't understand that, Eisenhower's speech, farewell speech, is more important right now than ever before. Ever before. Because it not only, at one point it was something for the people, the American people and the elected politicians that they should have looked out for. But now it's something that the bureaucrats themselves and the so-called alphabet agencies have to worry about. Now, some people say, well, of course, Google's in bed with, the NSA and the CIA and DARPA and all of that kind of thing. But now there's a conflict there. There's a conflict there. The corporatocracy, the World Economic Forum, the people who meet at Davos, all right, they don't have a need for these middlemen bureaucrats anymore. There's no need for that. There's no need. The CIA is an obsolete agency in the world today. Western civilization has fallen. The U.S. is totally ununited and is not going to reunite because it has irreconcilable differences among the people, the states, and the political structure. Just like in a divorce, irreconcilable differences. So it's not going to be reunited. So just by definition, you can't say it's the United States of America. No, it's the states. It's a geographical location. When Rome fell, guess what? You ended up with Italy. All right. When the United States falls, you end up with the states, this North American states. Who knows how it's all going to come out and whatever, but you've got governors and you've got territories and you've got, it's a complex, gradual thing. It's not going to be some, there are people already in this country experiencing dystopia. All right. But there are also people in this country that are living a life better than any lifestyle better than anyone can possibly imagine. And when I say too many secrets, there are technologies that are beyond your wildest dreams. There are technologies that are truly deserving of the year 2021. What you would have expected if you were at the World's Fair in 1960s, all right, if you were Walt Disney designing the Epcot Center, you would have figured by the year 2021 they'll have this, that, and the other. Well, guess what? We have this, that, and the other now. It's just that you don't know about it. All right. It's kept secret. It's like I said about what's the purpose of a self-driving car? Why don't you just outfit various streets and roads and places where you can't, you can't put trains or mass transportation? Why don't you use, the World's Fair Disney-esque monorails? That kind of thing. There's a million different ways if they wanted to do things they could do. You could take highways and, interstate highways. And you ever notice interstate highways have mediums down the middle and they're very wide, and even the bridges that's usually open in that area. Well, you could take interstate highways that cross the country or cross certain parts of states like Interstate 80 or 40 or the 10, all these roads. And you could easily put a rail system or some kind of monorail system right down the middle of that if you wanted to. But the idea of sitting in this car that's going to eventually fall apart, and you're going to have to buy another one, which is the only reason why they want self-driving cars, right? It has to do with the corporatocracy wanting to move product. It's like that song, we got to move these refrigerators. And so they don't want some kind of, they don't want that. See, it's like the same with the Green New Deal stuff. They don't want that stuff. They don't care about that. They don't care about ideologies. So there's a war going on right now, and nobody even knows that it's happening. And it's the idea of the final blow, and that is between, that is between the corporatocracy and the middlemen, bureaucrats. They're obsolete. They don't need them. It's just like the idea of like open it. Do you ever wonder like what's the purpose of the open immigration policy and just bringing in people? What are those people going to do? What kind of globalist plan is that? So why would you bring in millions and millions of unskilled, uneducated people? Because let's face it, the level of education in our country and in what was once Western civilization is much higher than it is in a lot of these countries where these immigrants come from. and that's one of their motivations to come here, is to basically, better themselves, better their lives. Well, since these people in charge of this are globalists, right, who all constantly talk about the planet, they want to save the planet and all of this. Well, wouldn't it be a lot more cost effective and easier to go to El Salvador, all right, where a place already is, and help build infrastructure, education facilities, and things of that nature right there on the premises for the people in an area where the people speak a certain language, right? Where you don't have language barriers, you don't have cultural barriers, all right? Where the climate is better. I mean, you imagine, the idea of someone from escaping Nicaragua, to come to the United States and freeze, right? Have problems communicating, and it is insane. It's like most Americans, if I were younger, I remember my brother, he always wanted to go. Where did he want to go? To Costa Rica or someplace like that. I think I knew some other people who actually went to Costa Rica and stuff. But the idea is like, wouldn't you want like a lot of these countries are almost like paradises where people are coming from. So the idea is if these globalists really had, were really honest and true to what they're trying to push out on people, they would be helping those countries, right? And it's almost like it should be a reverse, migration. In other words, build up South and Central America and help Mexico and get rid of these darn cartels and these other people, so that these areas can become, populated by us, But instead, they're going to become wastelands, and the planet is cooling, by the way, and those are going to be the areas where people survive the next extinction event, within coming in the next 20 some years, which is another secret that's being kept back from the American people. So I guess the takeaway from this is, to try to bring everything together so it doesn't go too much longer, is that, as I stated before, as an individual, you are free. You have 5 senses, and those 5 senses give you the ability to experience this world, 360 degrees, in 3D. You have creativity that a machine, a robot, is never going to come even close to. You are a machine, all right? However you believe, from a religious standpoint, that there was a creator that made you, or whether it was intelligent design, or whether it was some space alien, all right? Or if you believe, in some kind of randomization thing, which I doubt very much. I just don't buy into that theory. Darwinism, it's a theory, and to me, it's a theory that doesn't seem there's too many holes in that theory. So I don't even think it's a hypothesis. It's not. It just doesn't hold water. But whatever you believe, that's fine. We all have. That's our personal thing, and that's the beauty of being a human being. That you can have, you can have beliefs, and you can mull over things in your mind. You can have communications with other people, discussions. You can work things out. All right. You can be religious. You can be, you could believe in myths. You can believe in metaphysics. You can believe in hard science, or you could believe in all of those things and put them in various perspectives, or within, see the world, in some kind of mosaic way, so that you can hold on to certain things that that are important to you in your life, but still see things, but not close your mind to, other realities that are out there. So no one can take away your freedom unless you surrender it, right? They can't take away, if you enjoy looking at the sunset, they can't take that away from you. If you enjoy a full moon, they can't take that away from you. If you enjoy smelling flowers, fresh flowers, they can't take that away from you. If you enjoy having a discussion with people, they can't take it away from you. If you enjoy embracing a friend, they can't take that away from you. If you enjoy, your, partner in life or whatever, and you want to, make love and all of that stuff, they can't take that away from you. These things are, this is you. You were born here. That's you. And they can't take away your creative thinking. That's your consciousness. And that's what AI doesn't have. That's what Elon Musk can't create. That's what Ray Kurzweil and the Google team that are messing around with all this transhumanism stuff and all that. That's the one thing they don't have, is that they can't, it's called the hard problem of consciousness. And that's what's in my book touches on that and gets you thinking about that. And remember, all these protesters, my t-shirt up here that says "Then what?" with the question mark. All right. That's the answer to their question. We want this. We need this, such and such that. And I go, then what? Right? Because it's never enough. Right? And behind me, everything is wrong. And the other shirt that I push all the time is that you don't know what you don't know. And of course, greatsolarstuff.com. Get yourself prepared. It'll help you with storms and everything else. You are a free individual. They can't take anything away from you. Whatever they want to call this thing that's out there right now, all right, it's not the bubonic plague. It's not a flesh-eating disease. It's not Ebola, okay? It's a novel flu. There are at least three that I know of, treatments for it, for people who get it. And I guess there's vaccines for people who want that. But the idea is that we're approaching herd immunity pretty darn quickly. The thing's a couple of years old now, okay? And there's too many secrets revolved around that for somebody like me who's a thinker. Too many secrets. We don't know the truth. If they would be honest with us, I think, this thing would have probably been over 6 months ago. But there's too many secrets. And it's time that the bureaucrats and the alphabet agencies get on the side of the people and realize that their days are numbered by the corporatocracy, because the corporatocracy is against them. And instead of the CIA and the NSA and the DIA and these other ones that nobody even knows exist, instead of them worrying so much about spying and doing this and trying to tap into all this big data and monitor every aspect of whatever, right? They should be taking the place and coming back on the side of the people, if not because they care, all right, but for their own sake, for their own like futures and for their families, because the country is being gutted and turned into a totalitarian state by the corporatocracy, not by the politicians. See, that's the problem. It's misdirected. There's too many secrets out there, and it turns out that the bureaucratic agencies, have created this problem because of their secrets. They were covering for politicians, all right? But the politicians became powerless. And once the politicians became powerless, then the corporatocracy filled that power void. The thing about the corporatocracy is that's the Davos set. They control everything. and they're unelected. They can do whatever they want to. Most don't even live within this country. This is the old world order, not the new world order. This is their goals, neo-feudalism. And so and once you have a surveillance state, as if that we have now, that is primarily being conducted by big tech, all right, and their big data collection. Well, you no longer need these millions of people, collecting data and sifting through stuff and doing all the stuff that these people do. Because that's where the algorithms and the AI are going to replace them. So, and once that happens, then you're going to have a totalitarian state completely run by the corporatocracy. So they're not only are elected officials are irrelevant and insignificant, which they already are. I don't care. You could believe in the cult of personality of a particular political figure, but it doesn't matter. They're irrelevant and insignificant. But the bureaucrats right now don't realize that they are soon going to be irrelevant and insignificant. And anyone coming into the country is going to also find themselves that they wasted their time. Because if you came from a southern climate, some paradise, and you come into a place that's going to be just getting colder, having crop shortages, right? Becoming a totalitarian state, it's not going to be any better. All right. So, there's too many secrets all around right now. And people need to understand that those of you who are involved in this, for the sake of yourself, your family, your country, your future, it's time to basically, think, use your five senses, use your creativity. All right. And don't play this game, because part of the corporatocracy is the media. The media is owned by the corporatocracy. So that's their PR wing. That's their propaganda wing. And if you don't see the power is now that all the puppeteers are all at the top, they're the corporatocracy, consortium of big tech and big ag and, and the military industrial complex. All right. Big data and everything. Those are the rulers of the world. And Western civilization has fallen and the United States no longer exists. We're not united, and you know that. So get that through your thick skulls, wake up to that reality and remember that you can still live a good life despite all of that, because you have five senses and you have creativity. And they don't understand that. Everybody's confused. They're watching TV. Their minds are being put through a blender by used car salesmen, basically. That's what the media is. They're selling cars, used cars, and whatever. So just don't pay attention to them. And get the heck out of the cities. Don't live in these cubicles in these cities that are just going to become dystopian nightmares. Right? That's the surrealistic nightmare that we live in today. Right? So get to the outskirts of town at the very least. You can do it. I pay $200 a month, and that's my taxes, rent, or taxes, mortgage, and insurance. I own this house. Taxes, mortgage, and insurance is less than $200 a month. And I have everything. And I'm close to everything. You can do it. You could do it online. I found the house I never visited, and I didn't walk in this house with the key until I closed it with the real estate agent. I did the entire transaction online. I had a realtor come in and take a picture of a certain thing. Besides the pictures that were posted, I wanted to verify a couple of points. But apart from that, I did not set foot in my current house until I closed on the deal. And like I said, taxes, mortgage, insurance, $200. That's like 1/4 of the rent I was paying before. And for people living in the city,
you couldn't even have like, because people have roommates and stuff like that. You'd be lucky to get away with paying what I pay, even with roommates. And who the heck wants roommates? And I have a disconnected house. My house is not connected to any house next door. So I could play music loud if I want to. I could do whatever I want to. And I grow a garden out in my backyard, and I got food for more than half the year from it. So you're still free. Don't let these used car salespeople mess with you. And don't let these bureaucrats, if you're one of those bureaucrats, too many secrets, man. Those days are over. Remember, the corporatocracy knows everything you know. You think the CIA knows more than Google? They don't. They don't. And forget about congressional hearings and bringing in, Zuckerberg and these people and stuff like that. You have no idea what it's like. These guys, they're covering their asses. My advice to the bureaucrats is wake up, get on the right side. You're on the wrong side. And for those who are caught up in the cult of personality and politics is pop culture, wake up. Forget about it. The days of that are over. We're moving into a whole different world, and you've got to learn to adapt and live in it. And that world is the world of the corporatocracy. Yes, it's a totalitarian type of situation, but there's 330 million of us. And unlike these little fiefdoms in days gone by where there were tens of millions of people, perhaps some much less, there's no way they could manage 330 million people. So you get yourself to a place to live, carve out a life, and realize that you are still free because you have a human body with 5 senses, and you have the creative ability to do and adapt to whatever you need to do. And forget about these used cars salesmen on the media. I canceled my TV service back in October, November. Don't need it. YouTube's my TV. I'm on TV. Anyway, all the best. Cheers. Have a
Good morning.
And I'll see you this time, like I usually say sometimes.
Same time, same station.
I'll see you here tomorrow morning, maybe a little bit earlier. I don't know, but you can always watch it later on in the day. Take care. Have a great day. Peace.